The grades are on, the MTA grades are on SIS. I'm sure you have seen them, right?
Yes,
Yes, doctor.
yes, doctor.
MTS. Okay, okay. Okay, right. So what is it that we intend to do? طبعا we haven't finished Tom's Midnight Garden, and we're going to kind of talk about it for perhaps 2 more classes. But on, is it Monday? I mean, the second quiz.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah. Which means that we'll have a chance to talk about Tom's Midnight Garden, but Tuesday is not going to be the end of it. So we're meeting Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday means that we still have Monday and Tuesday, right? I'm sorry, I
Yes,
got
doctor.
confused. So Tuesday is the exam, okay? So we're not meeting on Tuesday, but we're meeting on Monday, right?
Yes.
Doctor, Monday I have another exam. That's why grammar part B. Maybe I
طيب
cannot
احنا
attend.
طيب يا فوزية يعني everything gets recorded. You can always go back to the recording, but I'm going to primarily address myself to the second quiz tonight. I'm trying to say that if I talk about the quiz, if I talk about Tom's Midnight Gun, it doesn't mean that we have ended the discussion. But perhaps I was keen on meeting you today in order for us to talk about the quiz. Okay, طيب. So the quiz, which is quiz 2, is on Tom's Midnight Garden, of course, you know that, and you know that you're going to write an essay. You have 2 choices. You have 2 essay questions, and you're supposed to write one of them or on one of them, and it's an hour long exam. It's only for an hour, and you're supposed to write not less than 200 words. Okay. So let's talk about Tom's Midnight Garden. Because we have already submitted the quizzes. The quizzes are there, right? Which means that we will not ask you about things that you haven't taken, right? So what did we talk about so far in Tom's Midnight Garden that is there in the exam? Did we talk about the imagination and how important the imagination is? So it can be, normally we have the imagination and fantasy, I'm sorry, and the 2 go together. So if I say fantasy, it's the imagination, and if it's the imagination, it's fantasy, right? This is
Yes.
one thing. Yes. Did we talk about the connection between Hattie and Tom?
Yes, doctor.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, doctor.
Yes. So this is actually what Tom's Midnight Garden is all about. It's about the very important role of Hattie in the life of the novel in general, and in the life and in the making of Tom. So Tom is not the Tom that we see at the end, mature, reformed, and everything in between, if he hasn't met Hattie, and she had such a transformative kind of impact on him. Okay, so I would like you in your preparation and studies to focus on those 2 aspects. One aspect has to do with the power of the imagination in the novel. And it's not enough to say that it's like a slip narrative or a time slip narrative, and it perhaps goes back to the past, to the Victorian. You need to talk about the underlying philosophy and the significance of that. why we have the magic garden, because the garden, make no mistake about it, is magical, right? Which means it doesn't exist in reality. It's only Tom who can see it, right? His uncle and aunt cannot see it, right? So it's perhaps a figment of his own imagination, but it is an important one, because through the garden, the magical garden, which is part of this alternative reality that he is seeking, it's a solace, right? What's a solace? Solace is a consolation. It helps him overcome his feelings of loneliness, his feeling of, he missed obviously his family so much. He missed his brother Peter so much, right? So it provides the solace that he needs, and also it provides the reform that he will go through, the maturity that he will reach. Again, this is all because of the magic garden, and the magic or the magical garden is part of this overall arching structure that we call uh, um, the imagination and this alternative reality. Again, this is part. Another very important part and aspect would be the bond, the relationship that developed between Hattie and Tom, and you would talk perhaps and dwell more on Hattie's role. And because this, make no mistake about it, the story is as much about uh, Tom, it is also about Hattie, because Hattie provides the material that Tom will perhaps look at and see from and become different. It's her losses, and it's her what her traumatic experiences that he will be given a chance to go through and learn from. So again, I'm stressing the fact that the Tom that we see at the end, very mature, very learned, accepting of the sad realities of life, accepting the linearity of life, accepting the fact that um, growing up is about loss, and growing up and moving forward is about eventual death. He comes to terms with these realities because of of uh, of Hattie, because of what happened to Hattie, because he was enabled to see that, to feel that. Remember what I told you last time, that you don't have to go through traumatic experiences to learn to deal with them, right? Somebody can tell you as they are, and you can learn through the experience. And this is exactly what Tom had. Of course, you would tell me that the two of them are allied in their loneliness and their sadness, but you would also say in the same breath that you cannot compare what Tom went through with what Hattie went through. Hattie went through a lot, and it was tragic. The loss of parents, the loss of children, right? What did Tom lose? And if
He
it's
just leave
loss at all,
about
it's
his parents.
he didn't. I mean, he left them, but this was only that was momentary, right? It was a brief
Yes,
time, and then they got reconciled at the end. But if you lose somebody, if somebody dies, I mean, obviously he never comes back. And this is exactly what happened with Hattie. She lost family members. So it was not brief, it was not momentary. Like, again, I'm stressing the fact that Hattie's role in the life of Tom is very crucial and very important. And you cannot think of the novel even without Hattie. And this is something that I always raise in my discussion of this novel. The idea that when you become so close to the novel, you would ask yourself, why is the novel Tom's Midnight Garden and not Hattie's Midnight Garden? Because Hattie, make no mistake about it, is so important, so pivotal. And I can dare say that you can dispense with Tom, but you cannot dispense with Hattie. I don't know whether you guys agree or not. So you would go back to the idea that there is some kind of gender bias, which is very strange because obviously the writer is a woman, right? There is inherent gender bias. Why? Because for all what Hattie is doing, tremendous as it is, she's not given the title, she's not the protagonist. Okay? So it's something to think about. Um, Again, this relationship, this bond between Hattie and Tom is very important, and you need to read more about it. You need to think of how the relationship developed, and the impact and the effect of this relationship. It wouldn't be enough to say that they did meet and they did play together and they did share their sad stories. It wouldn't be enough to say that. You would need to also focus on the impact, the consequences of that. What happened when they met and they had this bond? And you need to compare Tom at the beginning before he met Hattie, and Tom when he met Hattie, and Tom when he is taking leave and leaving Hattie. Again, these are different stages in his journey of maturity. He develops. He moves from being moody and irritable and perhaps um, getting angry at the least provocation to meeting Hattie and listening patiently, offering condolence, offering relief, and then ending with him accepting the sad realities of life, the linearity of life, the fact that growing up is a marker of eventuality, and after all. So we grow up, um, and this growing up is an indication that there is no going back, no childhood anymore. So growing up is about losing this green moments and those lovely moments when we were children. And then with growing up, you have this feeling that you never stop growing until you meet your eventuality, which is death. He is accepting of that, right? So this is the trajectory that you should follow if it's about this relationship between Tom and Hattie. Okay. Do you have any questions?
No, doctor, all clear.
Yes. Okay. I don't know. Are we all here? Yes, I think we're all. Even if some people are not here, they can always go back to the record. Okay. Mariam, you asked me a question the other day. You sent me an email, Mariam Sibai, right?
Yes, I asked you.
طيب, I'll talk to Mr. Ralph. I don't know whether those guys are on vacation because not all the staff are working in summer, as you are aware, and you need somebody to invigilate you. But let me check and get back to you, inshallah.
Okay, thank you, doctor. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. You're welcome. Okay, طيب. I'm sharing my slides. Can you see them?
Yes,
Yes.
doctor. Yes, doctor.
Okay. طيب. Again, it's Philippa Pierce that we're talking about. And the title of the novel is Tom's Midnight Garden. Again, after all what we have said about this transformative role of Hattie, you need to you yourself may reconsider the title. Should it remain Tom's Midnight Garden, or perhaps we can think of Hattie being part of the title when I say, for example, Hattie's Midnight Garden. Again, this is gender bias, and you wouldn't, which is obviously out of keeping with the fact that the writer is, a woman, and she should be promoting uh, women causes. This is only an interpretation, perhaps it's an extreme one. You don't have to stick to it, but this is again pointing to how important Hattie has always been in the novel. Again, this is another cover because every time we have a new edition, we have a new cover. If you remember, the other cover was blue, and the other cover. Do you still remember the other cover?
Yes, doctor.
Yes,
What's
doctor,
the
the blue.
difference? Yes, what's the difference? Because there is a stark difference between the two. I can notice it.
I think
Doctor,
it's
I
Tom
think,
alone
yes,
and
Yeah, excellent.
dark
Eh,
blue.
Yes, and the other
yes, the blue
one,
one.
it was only Tom, right? This time around, and on this cover, you also have Hattie. Again, pointing to the fact that Hattie is as important and as worthy of being on the cover page. What do you think of this? Do you agree, guys? Yes, you do. Again, this is all about Philippa Pierce. We don't normally ask you biographical questions, but perhaps we're doing that because we need to refer to a very important biographical element about Philippa, the fact that she was inspired by an incident when she was little in her life. She was inspired to write this novel where there is a garden where there are trees because she knew that she will miss that because they had like a house that has trees and they had to kind of sell it. Um, okay, this is Our Lady of Light. Yeah, this is yeah, she died in 2000 when in 2006. And this is a summary of the novel for those who haven't read the novel yet. It's a very interesting summary. It's very capsulized. So the book Tom's Midnight Garden is a mysterious but exciting book that you will never want to put down. The main character's name is Tom Long, and his brother Peter Long. And his brother Peter Long is diagnosed with measles. He is forced to live with his aunt Gwen and Uncle Alan. At first, he doesn't like it at all until he finds a magical garden that is only there starting at midnight. Tom was out there one night and he meets a ghost named Hattie. It's very disputed that she is really a ghost, and there is a great deal of talk as whether she is a ghost or not, and they become the best of friends. After that, everything becomes a big mess up and a huge mistake. Again, so it's not an innocent summary, it's a summary that is coupled with analysis. Again, talking about what happened as a mistake, also talking about or referring to Hattie as ghost. These are all interpretations. Let me also highlight something from the summary. When we said that that Tom is going to go live with his aunt Gwen and Uncle Alan, and the fact that he was forced, yes, he was forced, but we said at first he doesn't like it at all, which means that over time he will like it, and at the end he will even miss Uncle Alan and Aunt Gwen. Why? Because he became different, because he learned a lesson or two, right? Again, it's through the power of the garden. The garden here, serves as a, like what? A pastoral green world that has this capacity for healing and soothing. So it's only in the garden that he got healed of his issues and problems, loneliness, not accepting realities, not being tolerant enough towards the opinions of others. So what do we know about the novel? We know that it's one of the classics of British post-war children's literature or fiction. Remember, it's a post-war novel, and we mean it when we say it's a post-war because we said that it's perhaps Philippa Pierce's statement against what happened after the Second World War, the fact that people were disenchanted with the sad state of affairs, the fact that there was little that the government did to kind of please and appease people, to help them go by in their lives in terms of livelihood, in terms of employment. So people were angry, people were sad, and the novel reflects that. And the idea of having the novel partly set in the Victorian age is an indication that, Pierce and others were not happy. So they went all the way back to the Victorian age, which is obviously a glorious age and a glorious period for the English. It was the time of the British Empire. They were better off financially and all those kinds of things. So I said that the novel had or got its inspiration from an incident in the life of Philippa Pierce herself. The fact that at one point her father had to retire and they sold the mill house. And she realizes that her childhood had been chopped off from her. So she wanted to write a novel where there is a house with certain characteristics and features, where there are kind of trees and perhaps a garden. So that would kind of immortalize uh, and keep the memory of the sold house. Um, um, there is this unanimity and kind of consensus over how fine this novel is, how elaborate and how good it is. And this is shown through how it was well received and the number of medals and awards that it got, and the description of some critics. We have Hunt, for example, saying that it is one of the finest pieces of writing for children produced since World War II. You have Roe Townsend referring to the novel as a masterpiece, and also the fact that it was filmed and adapted so many times for the stage and for TV. Again, when you analyze the novel and you try to explore it, you're going to come up with a number of themes and ideas. One of them would be loss, in the sense of things slipping away. Again, there is this reference to time, to the linearity of time, the fact that there is no going back. We don't have, unfortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, we don't have Control Z, right? If you're writing something on a Word file, for example, if you're typing something and you misspell or you make a mistake, you have this undo button. And in order to do that, you press Control Z. So do we have that in life? No, we don't have that. So this is of life slipping away, of time slipping away, whether we like it or not, right? So you don't walk, and this is exactly what people, from time immemorial, are saying. They say that you cannot walk into the same river twice. So you walk in, and in a fraction of seconds, you walk in again, but the water is not the same, right? So this is life. Life never stops, and it slips away from between our fingers. And this is very sad and unfortunate, but this is what life is all about, and this is perhaps one of the messages of the novel. So the book is imbued with a feeling of loss and longing for the past. This idea of longing for the past is obviously very contested and disputed, unless we talk about our individual pasts, when we talk about being children. Because while being a child, you don't have the cares and the worries of people who are older than you. Again, on a different level, it can be longing for a peaceful, prosperous past, if we refer back to the Victorian age, for example. So again, we're talking about this feeling of loss, where we're confronting the inevitable losses of growing up and growing old, and this sad recognition that childhood is a transient phase of life that can never be revisited. Death to haunts the novel. There is always this comparison, if you're familiar with Peter Pan, which is another children's book. There is always this comparison between the two, but perhaps the endings are different, where, like we said, we're stressing the fact that Tom is reformed. Tom is mature. Tom is more accepting of the realities of life when Peter Pan is not. So the story's conclusion describes Tom's acceptance of what Peter Pan can never accept, which is this idea of growth and old age, accepting them and coming to terms with them. So to emphasize the importance of time, Pierce uses a time shift narrative, and this is actually not a new invention. It has been there, and it was repeated in children's literature. And it was even found in novels that were written before Pierce's novel. One of them is A Traveler in Time in 1939, and the other is King of Shadows. So you have this time shift where there is always this reference, this idea of reliving the past. Again, there is this comparison between Tom's Midnight Garden and another or other children's literature novels, where there is this talk about revisiting the past, and this past can be as back as the 17th century. And there is also this stress on the idea that when you go to the past, you become a playmate with somebody. So it's the past and this idea of play. Again, Pierce focuses more on the garden, and she places her work within the pastoral tradition of writing, which positions the garden as physically and morally redemptive. So the garden is very important in Pierce's work. It has this redemptive aspect to it, alagi, tubawi. It cleanses you of all your sins. And here is a reference to novels that were written before. One of them is The Secret Garden, and when you read the two, you find a lot of similarities. Again, these are some of the themes and ideas that some scholars have spotted, like Ruston's, for example, where in the article there is this focus on this idea of loneliness, dreaming, and discovery. Whose loneliness are we talking about? Obviously, we're talking about the loneliness of Tom and Hattie. So the story describes the way in which a child of modern times comes to enter imaginatively into the lives of a period of 2 generations ago. And that story achieves its effect in part through its intense power of metaphor. So Hattie and Tom are deepened and extended. I mean, their lives, obviously, their stories are deepened and extended by their experiences of separations. So Hattie's separation is clear, and it is through the death of her parents and kids. Tom's separation happens through illness, the illness of his brother, and through holidaying somewhere else. Again, it's about reliving experiences, and this is what we refer to as being alive in feeling, and being also dead because you invoke and remember what uh, happens to you. So Tom is resentful and lifeless when he is with his uncle and aunt. Again, he feels that, living in the house um, isn't he's not active enough, and it's not the life that he envisioned or expected. So only when it's midnight that life transforms and it becomes active, it becomes lively, and this is when the magical garden appears. Again, what is also important about gardens, and you cannot think of a garden without, of course, trees. So trees in the novel are very important. Whether we're talking about Hattie, Tom, or even Tom's brother Peter. And we have seen situations where Peter is, they are building stuff around the trees, and we also have Hattie hurting herself by falling out of a tree house she has built with Tom. Again, because we're talking about separation and illness, we need to know that the threat and illness itself, or the threat of being ill, are catalysts of growth for children, bringing recognition of bonds that otherwise are taken for granted. This is true. The idea that you don't learn a lesson or two unless you have trials and tribulations, because trials and tribulations and suffering make you think. And when you think, you learn. So it's not something that you do, learning and thinking, if you're having gone through some ordeals and dilemmas and hardships. Again, it's through the tree or the trees, and through the magic garden in general. It is through them that we have those feelings of fellow feeling and this bonding between Tom and Hattie. He becomes very anxious, and he tries to make sure that he didn't hurt her through his dangerous tree games, and she is also, or she becomes protective and sisterly towards him. Again, these are situations where the tree is in the center of events, as it is in the center of the garden. And again, whether the tree is there or perhaps struck and cut off, these are all indications, and they are suggestive of what happens with the two. If the garden is in the center, and they're solid and everything, this is perhaps a reference to how solid the relationship and the bond is. So once Hattie over time matures and she starts to perhaps think of getting married, the tree is struck by lightning, Um, Again, it's there is of course the river bank and what happens over there, and it's there that Hattie is going to start to think of Barty and the unfrozen world of love, and then because Barty is obviously big in terms of age, she starts to, because she mature, I mean, she kind of grows exponentially, like we said. Again, once she has those intentions and feelings, her childhood fades and she becomes, I mean, the whole dream, if it's a dream, collapses. So the great freeze becomes the metaphor or latency, and that would suggest the expansiveness and pre-pubertal space. And the metaphor remains. Again, we have this rivalry between Tom and Barty, and obviously Barty is going to win. And because Hattie grows up. Remember what we said about the importance of the imagination. So it's the imagination and play, which are things that we normally associate with the garden. They provide a space in which the primary preoccupations with images of parents and feelings towards them are held in mind and explored. So Tom is able to explore the experience of loneliness through identification with Hattie's experiences of her adoptive family. Again, look at his attitude towards the end of the novel. He has those heightened feelings about the garden itself and about his aunt and uncle's home when he has to leave it. Again, he develops, and now he regrets the fact that he's going to leave those things behind. This is not the same attitude that he had. Remember, when he started off, he was very antagonistic towards his uncle and his aunt, and he was not happy with the house. Especially when you think of Uncle Alan's lectures, didactic lectures. I mean, he was lecturing him obviously on time and its scientific properties, and those were very kind of annoying and upsetting for Tom. Again, over time, he matures, he develops, and he starts to even recognize that Hattie is perhaps a ghost, that the Hattie that he knows is over, is gone, and he realizes at the end that Mrs. Bartholomew has always been Hattie, and the fact that this is typical of everyone. She is in her growth trajectory. She started off as Hattie, and she's now Mrs. Bartholomew, and the next thing you know, she's going to even become even older, and eventually she will die. Again, you would look at how they are dealing, both of them, Hattie and Tom, are dealing with the idea of play, because the Magic Garden was about play. They both were playmates, they played together. So, like Tom, play for Hattie was a way of coping with loss. again, this is all about the fact that Hattie, through Tom and the garden, she was reliving her childhood, and with that would come those feelings of bereavement, isolation, loneliness, and even recovery. Renewing that all, these were all fuel enough for her to renew her capacity for love and feeling in the present. So, what does those memories of relationships, what do they do to her? They sustain her. Again, those are memories of different stages in her life when she was a child or a wife and also as a mother. Again, it's about those feelings of, getting together, sharing, and the solace and the consolation that this provides for both of them. Again, we're stressing the fact that Hattie's part is even more instrumental in the development of Tom because of the so many things that happened in her life. Remember, she is no more than Mrs. Portolomo, which means that she lived a very long life. You cannot compare her experiences, vast as they are, to the small amount of experiences that Tom went through because he is only a child. So this is a comparison between Tom and Hattie and what they have gone through. So each felt lonely and abandoned. However, Tom's life is easier. Um, so the story projects into the past a more spacious and humanly connected environment, which Tom can explore through his contact with Hattie. Again, we're talking about two different worlds, two different natures. Again, in this battle for who to be nominated for the most miserable, Hattie would win, even for sure. There is also a number of references to religious any kind of associations and triggers. Again, you would compare the mechanistic world that Uncle Alan believed in, his absolute rationality with, you know, religion with its focus on perhaps, that things don't happen mechanically all the time. There is this grace of God, blessing of God, and stuff like that. And then there is this talk about the different, because we have this element of fantasy, an element of imagination, which means that we're provided with two different types of time in the novel. One of them is Chronos, which is the personification of time in pre-Socratic or in the pre-Socratic philosophy, which is obviously what we would normally refer to as linear time. And you have Kairos, which is memory time. And the idea with memory, you move back and forward. You don't have, you have this flexibility to move between time periods. So there is obviously no limitations on you if you are in the Kairos mode of time. And here we have Maria Nikolajeva talking about this idea of time, which with its two facets, where again we're talking about temporal linear time and memory time, which is when I talk about memory time, I'm talking about non-linearity, where the past is present and the present is the past. Remember what we said about the religious connotations. Again, when we talk about the garden, it would remind us of the garden of Eden or Adam, right? Again, with the associations and the mistakes and all those kinds of things. And this is the end of this part. If you have any questions, come to the mic. Again, I'm stressing the fact that the relationship and the bonding between Hattie and Tom is very important, and also the power of the imagination and what it does and what kind of role it plays in the novel. If you have any questions. So the imagination provides or offers escape and solace. Escape from what? And solace, again, salwa of what you're trying to find consolation because something bad happened to you. So you need to apply this to both Tom and Hattie. Yeah, come to the mic, and somebody was or wanted to say something.
No, doctor, I just wanted to say that everything is clear.
Interest. Again, if we have Ibrahim, yeah, Ibrahim. Okay, he's not here. Okay, I think we'll stop on this note and with this item, and I'll meet you on Monday, inshallah.
Samah,
Yes.
I have a question about the midterm. May I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so what was the most common mistake that most of us did? Because for me, I thought I did a great job, but yet I didn't receive the grade I thought I'm deserving. So what do you think the most common mistake we should avoid in the final and the quiz?
I think, I mean, this idea of organization, this idea of depth and comprehensiveness. And remember what I said, the things that I focus on, clarity and relevance and depth. These are things that you guys all lack. You write and you give us information, but you don't know how to manipulate. This is perhaps, this may happen over time, but if you're keen on developing those, if you're consistent about it. What I notice is that people engage in story retelling sometimes. Some others engage in perhaps talking about the work in general, which is something I warned you against. I don't want to know about when something was written and when it was published and where. So we're past that. خلاص, we're graduating خلاص. I think you need to focus more on the bottom line. The bottom line is what you are asked to do. So lack of analysis or lack of serious analysis, let me put it, lack of depth. And again, the illustrations are not there. I mean, you don't all illustrate and give enough and relevant examples. These are the most, I wouldn't say, these are not errors or mistakes. This is lack of experience, perhaps. We still have time to kind of work on that. You still have quiz 2, which is out of 10, and you still have the final, which is out of 50 marks.
Yeah,
Keep
Doctor.
these things, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, as you mentioned, we get experience day by day. But for this course, I'm not speaking for everyone, but most of us don't want يعني just to pass the course. We want to get the best grade. So is there any other tips might help us? And you mentioned the published date. You don't need it. Even in the introduction.
I mean, if it's very short and sweet, I mean, but spending the rest of your life talking about the author and talking about the novel and the dates wouldn't serve you well. I'm not talking about you, you know, I'm talking about everyone. Yes. So keep this to a minimum and focus on being clear, being relevant, okay, being deep. Deep analysis is very important. What was your score, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I don't mind. It was 21.75.
Mm-hmm. But you're not you're not bad.
No,
I
doctor,
mean,
not bad,
mm,
but the amount of work I put, I almost spent like 3 weeks studying and preparing. Because as I mentioned before, I want the best grade possible. So I was a little bit shocked when I saw the grade.
طيب يعني work even harder, and I promise inshallah يعني I'll look deep into what you're writing inshallah. But you're progressing. If you're 21, يعني perhaps you can ace the second quiz and you still have the 50 marks. You're progressing, yeah, Nawaf. It's only that you're, yeah, go
We are aiming for the
on.
best, doctor.
Right, inshallah, you will do better than what you did, and I'm encouraging you. I know you're doing your utmost, yeah. And
Okay,
I'm
thank
so
you.
proud of you. You're welcome. Any other questions before we call it a night, Jama'a? Yeah. Right, let's call it a night. Right. I'll see you on Monday, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.